Now, I'm not actually going to talk to you about a less than zero building, but I am going to tell you about using building sustainability measurement tools in Hong Kong with a focus on DGNB. Now, if you were listening to the earlier presentation, you will already know what DGNB is. There won't be a test, I will tell you more. Is that better? Okay, is that better? Some of you may not have heard of Buro Happold, so I ought to just briefly tell you. We're engineers, and these are some of the projects that we've done in Hong Kong and around the world. Now, the project on the top left-hand corner, which is the Hong Kong Jockey Club Sha Tin Communications and Technologies Centre, is actually the reason for these slides. The next few slides are really the story of the design of that project so far. And at the very beginning of that process, at the beginning of this year, the Jockey Club said to us in their brief, we would like Beam Plus Gold, please. But they also said to us, what else is out there? What other measurement tools, what other targets are around? Should we be looking for something, maybe something different or something tougher? So the first step was to look at what else is around the world. Now here are just a handful of measurement tools from different parts of the world. There are many more of them. This one just happens to be in date order, so the oldest at the top is the UK BREEAM system, which is now 20 years old. It used to be excellent, the top rating, but like exams at school, too many people are getting A's, so there is now an outstanding category, which is quite reassuring. As you go down the list, you recognise LEED from the USA, which is of course a very, very popular, very common measurement tool. A little bit further down you'll see Beam Plus, which is now 15 years old, or HK Beam as it was, which is now of course Beam Plus. And as you move down that list to 2008, second from the bottom, you will see DGNB, which is the German system. And at the very bottom there is the Estidama tool, and I'm told Estidama means sustainability in Arabic, which is in Abu Dhabi. Now most of these tools haven't gone further than their own country boundary, apart from BREEAM and LEED. And LEED is the one that's certainly travelled the most of all of them. So we thought, okay, how do we compare these tools? How do we help the Jockey Club pick a tool or pick a particular target? So we produced this very colourful diagram, which I'll briefly explain. Down the right-hand side, you'll see some of the typical sustainability topics. So things like ecology, water use, pollution, of course energy is in there, and so on. Now, all of the topics are very similar across all of these tools, and you can't really compare them because each one of them is really designed for its own country, for its local regulations, for its local climate. But what you can do is pick out particular areas of emphasis or focus. Now, you'll notice that in the BCA green mark column, which is second from the right, the dark blue bit is quite large, and so is the HK Beam column, which is one to the left. The dark blue bits are very large. Now, they're the energy sections, and I think the reason for that is because they're both quite hot climates. We rely very heavily on air conditioning, which is a very high energy user. So the dark bit section, the energy use section, is given quite a lot of focus. If you now look at the column with DGNB at the bottom, which is the German system, you'll notice that the dark blue bit, the energy bit, is very small. Now, that's probably because in Germany the energy regulations are so tough and the performance is so good, relatively, that actually there's no real reason to award lots of points for that because everybody's doing really well already. But what you'll also notice about the DGNB column is that the pink bit is the biggest of all of them. And that is the bit which relates to management, maintenance and operation of buildings. So in many ways, Germany have not quite solved the energy problem, but they're making fantastic progress. So they're now looking at other areas of focus, which is how buildings operate and how you manage them. So this is the pink bit, if you like. This is the management and operation area. So it's life cycle analysis. And there are two parts to this. The first bit is life cycle costing, which is fairly obvious. What is the total cost of constructing the building, operating the building, and then demolishing it and recycling it at the very end? What does that cost you in dollars? The second part is the life cycle assessment. which is actually the amount of embodied carbon in the building. So that's taking the raw material, manufacturing it, transporting it to site, then building the building, then running the building, and then demolishing and recycling it at the very end. So what the system allows you to do is to make decisions about cost over a 50-year life cycle, but it also allows you to have some idea of the environmental impact, the carbon story behind the cost. And this covers not just the building, not just the M&E systems and the renewable technologies, but all the way down to the finishes. You can even choose your carpet using the system. So, for example, bamboo flooring over a life cycle of 50 years usually comes out much, much better than a bit of carpet. And the Jockey Club are applying this thinking to the whole of their building. Now, the environmental measurement tools are all very well, and gold and platinum and all those sorts of badges are in many ways just badges. I mean, they do certainly serve a purpose, but behind those tools there are some very hard targets, and in many ways these are more important than the measurement tools and the gold or the silver or the platinum. So energy, water, waste, materials and ecology are really far more important, and all of our projects should have hard targets, and that's where less than zero really comes into its own. Energy is probably, or quite rightly, at the top of this list. And then finally, how do we tackle energy use? How should we design our buildings to make them zero energy or less than zero? And this is a very simple diagram which is reasonably easy to remember, which is mean, lean, green. And this came from our work on the London 2012 Olympic infrastructure, which of course is taking place next year. Now, the mean bit at the top of the pyramid relates to the building itself. So it's to do with the shape of the building, the orientation, the amount of glazing, the amount of shading. It is the building envelope stuff. The lean bit relates to the systems inside the building. So primarily the mechanical and electrical systems, ventilation, air conditioning, lighting and so on. And then the green bit at the bottom is the renewable technology. Now, the pyramid is that shape because the width of the pyramid broadly represents cost per amount of carbon or energy saved. So of course, mean is cheapest, lean is the next, and green is usually the most expensive. So the right method for design is to start at the top with mean and work your way down to green. Now, an example I've heard somebody give before is Arnold Schwarzenegger's Hummer. He drives a very, very large Hummer car, and he puts biodiesel into his Hummer and thinks that's okay. Now, of course, if he bought a much smaller car, which was lighter and more aerodynamic, he would have fulfilled the mean criteria. If he then bought a more efficient engine, he would be doing very well in the lean bit. And then if he put biofuel into the car, that's the green bit at the end. And buildings should be designed in a similar way. I should also point out that Arnold Schwarzenegger is not German, he is in fact Austrian. So that's of course why you got that so wrong. Anyway, just finally, the discussion points that I'd like to contribute in a way are to do with, don't forget about the other bits. Energy is of course at the top of the list, but there are many other aspects. Take the longer term view, which is about that life cycle analysis, which is where the German system is so strong, and then think about economic design. So the mean, lean, green process is very simple, but is also very effective. Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much, David, and we'll take some questions in the end. I once met a person in the United States who said one of the reasons why Arnold Schwarzenegger had a hard time making it in his early career in the United States was his Australian accent. But as David's pointed out, he's Austrian, not Australian. Could I ask Raymond to come up next? Raymond, well known to Hong Kong green building experts and enthusiasts, and has had a long history in the UK and in Hong Kong on developing engineering and modelling systems for green buildings. So very keen to hear what you've got to say, Raymond. Thanks.